In these crazy times, economic uncertainty is on a lot of people's minds. Today, I'm going to share with you what I call the triple punch to the gut and how you can be prepared. Hi, I'm Andrew Henderson. This is Nomad Capitalist, where we help 7- and 8-figure entrepreneurs and investors legally go where you're treated best. And the last 2 years have taught us a lot. They have taught us that for many people, your country doesn't care about you. The embassy is not going to help you. The government's not going to get you out of a crisis or a hot spot the way that people told me when I gave up U.S. citizenship. They said, well, what are you going to do when you're stuck somewhere? Don't you want the helicopters like in Vietnam to come and grab you? We've seen that's not really working anymore. Certainly small countries, including one or two of my citizenships, have been very helpful at the embassy level, at the government level. They've been very efficient. But for most people, it hasn't been the case. And now you're seeing the economic uncertainty play out. You're seeing people who want a plan B more than ever. And today I want to talk about 3 factors that I call the punch to the gut, the sort of trifecta, as it were, not our living trifecta, but a trifecta of bad economic conditions, the biggest of which that is being talked about all over the world is inflation. And this is something that the Western world hasn't really been talking about for some time. You see prices going through the roof. You see gas prices around the world, in particular the United States, going up. You see things like monthly wages in countries like the UK are basically back at levels from the 80s. And this is obviously a concern where people's money is becoming less and less valuable. Now, certainly we work with folks who they put all their money in crypto and they believe that will help them. Listen, I'm in crypto. I'm not 100% in crypto. I like to be diversified. But certainly people have done that. If you're not 100% in crypto or 100% in gold, you are holding fiat currencies that are going down in value. So the question is, what do you do with it? Well, we've been saying for a long time, put your money somewhere else where at least you can get some bang for your buck. I look at a couple of examples. Number one, if you're going to keep some money in the bank, let's say you're looking for all this economic uncertainty to lead to stock prices going down or real estate prices going down. You're looking to come in and buy stuff up at lower prices in the future when perhaps the dust settles. Where are you going to park that capital? Well, you could put it in, I'm not a financial advisor, but you could put it in some kind of short-term investment vehicle. You could also put it in cash, but no one's paying any interest in cash. In fact, in many places in the world, they're charging you to hold your cash. At least in countries like in Armenia or Cambodia or in Ecuador, at least you can get some kind of interest on your cash, 4 or 5%, where perhaps you can have a fighting chance of somewhat keeping up with inflation rather than leaving it at zero and just watching it inflate away. And so, that is a benefit of banking offshore if you're trying to keep some cash on hand, which I certainly think is a good idea. There's always, investment opportunities coming up. There's always distressed assets that you may want to buy. You want to have some cash on hand. On top of that, I can tell you that investments that I made overseas have held up pretty well during this last 2 years. I have consistently received my dividend checks from real estate investments I've made overseas. I have not been told, oh, the tenants aren't all paying because the government told them they have to pay. I've been getting paid regularly. And so I think that an investment like that, where the government is not going to come in and take away your investment potential, where people are continuing to pay, that's been good at helping me survive inflation by actually getting paid on the investments that I've already made. And that's not the case for some people who own property in Western countries. So inflation, obviously a big issue. And you see, people who are increasing prices. We had to increase some of our prices a little bit to make sure that we are, paying the bills that we have that go up. We haven't been hit nearly as hard as some businesses. Obviously in the services sector, we're not buying a lot of raw materials or lumber or stuff like that. But certainly there have been some price increases as people have see more and more inflation. I also think you're going to see that really hit people in the pocketbook, people who are already hurting in Western countries, which brings me to point number 2, which is wage stagnation. People's wages are simply not going up in many cases. And I've talked a couple times about a report that I saw in the U.S. where the median salary, if you're in the 50th percentile, not as a household, but as a person, you're making somewhere in the $30,000s. I think it was like $34,000 or $36,000 is what the average person living in the United States is making. Now, obviously, if you're living in Austin, Texas, or New York, the number is going to be different. But all across the Western countries, and I mentioned the numbers in the UK, you are seeing wage stagnation. Now, we're not seeing wage stagnation. The places that I'm hiring that are emerging and that more people are coming and discovering these places, there is more competition than there used to be. It's still very competitive, and you can still hire on, I think, better terms, non-financial terms. But where I'm hiring, prices are going up a bit more. I'm not convinced that that's the case in many markets in the U.S. and other Western countries. And so what does that mean? It means the same thing that inflation means in terms of the politics, in terms of the cultural reaction. As you know, culture dictates a lot. We talk about that. People whose wages aren't going up, but their prices are going up, you're going to have some chaos on your hands. You're going to have some very angry people who are going to be out in the streets potentially, who are going to be voting for sure to say, listen, let's move in the direction of people who are going to give me more stuff. People who are going to give me more things for free. And who's going to pay for that? Well, especially in the United States, taxes are not distributed evenly. Politicians love to talk about how Elon Musk can take a loan in his shares and not pay taxes, but the average entrepreneur, 7, 8, even 9 figure, is just paying lots of income tax. They're paying on their business. They're paying on their crypto investments. They're paying on their trading. They're paying on everything that they're doing when they are selling, when they are earning that income. And so they are paying the vast majority of the taxes in a country like the U.S. The U.S. has one of the more unequal tax burdens in the Western world, but it's going to become more unequal when people who are seeing these two gut punches decide, listen, this is not sustainable. And you know what? They're right. It's not. But the issue isn't wealthy people who've been building up businesses. I've worked with a number of people who've built up businesses during the pandemic, and now they've become very wealthy. They are the newly minted 1%. And yet they will be political fodder for folks who are surviving these issues that were created by their government, inflation and Stagnation. And so the third issue is going to be higher taxes. For some of those folks, the taxes may not go up. But for you, your taxes will go up. And what have you seen? You've seen lots of countries talk about imposing wealth taxes. You may not have that in the U.S. We may dodge that bullet for the time being in the U.S. But you are going to see more countries talk about this. Countries have talked about windfall profit taxes. If your company makes too much money, it doesn't matter that that money maybe is going to hire more people. I can tell you what, we're a profitable company. We're more profitable than ever. And what are we doing? We're going out and expanding. We're hiring more research and development people. We're doing more strategy work. We are expanding. We're putting money back into the economy. If you're going to tax me my windfall profits, maybe I'm going to put less money into that, or maybe I'm going to move my company overseas. But either way, these countries are just going to perpetuate this cycle where you're going to have fewer jobs, you're going to have wages that don't grow because there's going to be less demand. They're going to continue to have this inflation, which now they say, oh, it's forget transitory. And so, put all these things together. Listen, we speak to 7 and 8 figure entrepreneurs and investors. That is our audience. And so, the politicians can claim that only the billionaires are going to get hit. You and I know that's not true. We know that these 3 things together, the higher taxes are going to impact you directly. The other issues are going to affect you indirectly. And by the way, it's unfortunate because you'd like people that are around you to be successful. It's unfortunate what the government has done with their profligate spending and all their bad policies has led for this to be the case. But, I'm a pragmatist. I'm an entrepreneur. I find opportunities and I go there. And quite frankly, I see a lot of negativity in Western countries like the United States, where you're going to be stuck paying the bill. You're going to be stuck being the evil person. You are going to deal with this. Not only are you going to have inflation in your business. I have people who their prices are going through the roof. I have people who are selling stuff online who they can't get their products because the government is mismanaging things. And so diversification to me is very important. Obviously, a lot of people who watch this channel these days are in crypto. You could put your money in foreign currencies. Right now, you do have a stronger dollar. Perhaps that's an opportunity. Again, not financial advice, but certainly some people are taking this opportunity to buy real estate in countries where they have better rental income potential, where potentially even in dollarized economies like a Panama, an Ecuador, a Cambodia, a Georgia, you can put money in and earn better rental yields with lower taxes, with potentially more growth opportunities in markets that actually have some growth potential where wages are going up. Go to Tbilisi 5 years ago versus now. The difference of the cars on the street is just astronomical. That's partially because of an increase in consumer debt, but it's also just an increase in people who are making more money. The wages that you could have paid someone in Georgia 5 years ago, they're still very reasonable, and you can get decent quality, and whether it's Georgia or somewhere else. It's still, I think, better than in many Western countries. But people are earning more money in these countries. I think there's more optimism in those countries, the countries that we talk about. Not a lot of optimism in the United States and other countries like it. In fact, some recent numbers said that only 1 in 5 Americans think the country's going in the right direction. The point of how that affects you is this triple punch to the gut of inflation, wage stagnation, and coming higher taxes is going to mean a more hostile climate to do business, a more hostile culture to do business, because I do think that being happy and feeling at peace and feeling good in your surroundings is important. I didn't feel that way in the US, and I think it would only be worse now, especially as an entrepreneur, and especially as my business has grown. I imagine those of you who are still there, you tell me, hey, it's not as comfortable as it once was. I just feel like people are against me. And that's not just the US. I talked to a friend today in Norway. He said, it's always been that way in Norway, and now you're seeing other Western countries kind of catching up where, he said, I didn't want my father dropping me off at school in his Jaguar because it was embarrassing to have wealth. That's coming to more Western countries. Why would you want to live in that? Don't you want to be happy? Didn't you build a business to have freedom and not to have people barking at you and demanding to take more of your money and putting the problems of society created by the government on you? This triple punch to the gut is going to impact entrepreneurs and investors at a high level in a significant way, in my opinion. And so having the diversification of putting money in other asset classes, of course, if you have to report it, there may be some forms to fill out that you report your foreign investments. Of course, you should do that and talk to the appropriate tax counsel for that. But having diversification, whether it's crypto, whether it's other currencies, whether it's holding cash at higher yields in foreign banks, whether it's owning real estate that has more reliable and higher yields, whether it's owning stocks in markets where it hasn't all been pumped up through a bunch of printing. There are still places like that out there. And so those in my opinion, antidotes towards this triple punch to the gut that is affecting many economies, particularly in the West. Don't stop now. We've got well over 1,000 more videos here on YouTube for you to watch and learn how to go where you're treated best. And if you want to work with Nomad Capitalist personally, go to nomadcapitalist.com/apply, learn about our unique, tried and true process, garnered over years of experience, and learn how you can become our client.